Good evening, PLF Universe. Schools of Creativity presents PLF Asia. The Phoenix Literature Festival started its journey in October 2020, and since then we have
Get
conducted
16 of
three
us.
literature festivals. PLF Asia is the fourth literature festival. The sessions are viewed by more than 35,000 viewers virtually with authors from India, South Africa, Australia, US, Canada, Iran, and UK. We strive to help writers and readers,
South
community,
Africa,
and bring
Australia,
them
US,
into
Canada,
one
Iran, and
platform. PLF also started an
strive
initiative,
to
Schools of Creativity, to help kids and youth to inculcate
writers
reading
and
and
readers.
writing
South
habits.
Africa,
PLF
Australia, US,
Asia is
Canada,
a
Iran.
dialogue to propagate the message of bringing a change in society and also to recognize the change makers of Asia. Good evening, everyone, and good
Good
evening to the
evening.
PLF universe. I'm your host, Aditya, and this is day one of PLF Asia on the 5th of March 2022. And we have a very interesting theme this evening, Asia's rise to dominance in English literature. So when we connect, on one side we have Asia, on the other side we have English literature. It's such a huge universe. What kind of examples through books can we bring? We can bring Tagore's Gitanjali to Khaled Hosseini's Kite Runner and many more such examples, which we shall discuss as our session progresses. But we have a very elite panel tonight. We have Vani Kaushal from India, we have Ganesh Lath from Nepal, and we have Sha Nacino all the way from Thailand. So we have the best of Asia here today. And let's get to know our panelists one by one before we take a deep dive into this very interesting theme. So let's meet our first panelist all the way from India, Vani Kaushal. Vani is a former business journalist and an international author and a columnist. Her debut rom-com, The Recession, was released in 2015. Her second book, Flowers Forever, celebrates the four-decade artistic career of Elizabeth Lizo Shanian, an award-winning American Armenian artist. Our second esteemed panel is Sha Nacino, who is a trusted global keynote speaker on gratitude, happiness, and productivity, a corporate trainer, and an author of 12 books. She has served as a speaker and a trainer to companies and organizations such as HSBC, Bentel, Mercedes Benz, Isla Land, Metro Bank, BPL, and many more. She is a certified Jack Canfield trainer on success. She is also a distinguished Toastmaster, the highest award given by Toastmasters to its members worldwide. Our, our third panel is Ganesh Prasad Lath. He has been actively associated with Lions Clubs International, Relief Society of Commerce, and Radha Devi Bridge Lal Trust, Dhamma Tarai Vipassana Mediation Center, Pathshala Nepal, Nepal India Cooperation Forum, and Nepal India Socio-Economic Forum. He is the president of Federation of Nepalese Chambers of Commerce and Industry Province 2. His published works include Anurad Bhavan, Samya, satirical stories and language and the language is Nepalese, Agadit, a satirical novel in Nepalese, and Kashmadan, a fictional novel in Nepalese. So, a warm welcome to all our panelists. And we have something in common that we all are authors. We have written in our various local languages and in a common language, which at this point is English. So, my question to all the panelists is: when was the first time you got interested in writing a book? Which book made you get become a writer? What was the book which made you think, okay, I can also write, I can also express my thoughts? Let's start with Vani.
First of all, thank you so much. I am just, I'm delighted. I'm excited. It's a mix of emotions, seeing all of you here. So thank you so much for the opportunity. Aditya, I would also, you missed out mention of my book that we just launched. This is the one I'm most proud about. Seconds later. Answering, coming back to your question, I would say that there was no book in particular that made me gravitate towards writing as a career. I was always interested in stories. So when we were like little kids, and up till the 10th grade, we have a system in India where we are introduced to stories from all over Asia. Mostly, we start off with Jataka tales and, tales about Buddha, and we have mythological stories, and we used to have those English books, and English was a compulsory subject for us. And most of the stories that we read about had the this theme about good, the fight of good and evil, or how they were all about moral values and all. So I used to read those, and of course we have all grown up reading Arabian Nights, and they introduced us to good storytelling. And reading all those stories, and I was interested in, I for me, writing meant an expression of my own story. It was about writing my own story, and I got motivated after reading all these beautifully told stories that we were reading in our school days, and they would build up these characters, and they would have their voices, and all sorts of things going on, like a crab teaching a lesson to a crane, and all those moral values. So I thought, yeah, why not, and I think all of us here, if I'm not wrong, even Shah and Ganesh, please correct me, all of us started writing from like our younger years, like maybe around 7 or 8 or 9, and we thought, why can't we write? So, but then, as far as your style is concerned, I think that developed over a period of time. Of course, I started off as a journalist first, worked as a journalist for many years. Then after that, much later, 2011, I worked on my own style, my own voice, and gradually, what came out was my first novel in 2015, and now this is like was released last year, was my third book actually. So that's how the whole story goes for me. And I would love to listen to what you all have to say.
So, Shah, what about you? Which book made you write, or do you have a similar opinion to one? You just started writing, no book.
Yes, just like Vani, there is no one particular book that inspired me to write. But what really inspired me to write was this burning message that I'd like to share. And I felt like the best way to share the message was by writing a book. So at that time, I wanted to share about financial literacy, but I realized money was such a sensitive issue. I cannot just tell people or my friends, hey, you need to manage your money, you need to save and invest, because well, they would shy away from the conversation. And also, I'd like to share that I was not a writer to begin with. I was also not fond of reading books growing up. One reason is because I loved numbers. I loved math. The reason for that is because if you know the formula, you just practice a bit and you're off to go. But as regards reading, I did not find joy in reading. I did not find joy in writing. I think the only literary work I wrote when I was in elementary was a poem I wrote for a crush, because there is this, I had a huge crush on our class valedictorian. And I cannot keep the emotions to myself, and so I wrote a poem as an expression of that emotion I had for my crush, because that was my top secret then. So after grade 5, the next time I wrote was when I started writing my first book in 2011. So there. So I wrote a book because I wanted to share a message. And the books that inspired me to write, not because of the writing per se, but because these books changed my life, were the books of Robert Kiyosaki, Rich Dad Poor Dad, and another book by a local author, Bo Sanchez, actually many of his books. So I thought, okay, these books changed my life. And I believe my book can also change the lives of so many people. And that inspired me to write my first book. And then today I've written 15 so far.
Ganesh, how was your experience?
Yeah, from child age, I used to read magazines, and now, right now, these magazines are not available. If you remember, there were Madhu Muskan, Lotpot, Champak, Nandan, and my reading journey started with those magazines. Thereafter, I just my taste turned to the novel written by Ved Prakash Sharma, Om Prakash Sharma, Surendra Mohan Pathak. In this way, I jumped into the ocean of reading of novels, Hindi novels. Gradually, it got turned into international book like written by Khalid Hussain, Bank to the Poor, written by Muhammad Yunus, Aya, Unfettered Wings of Sana Munir. Then I just imagine if they can write, why can't I? There are a lot of agonies within each and every person, a lot of experience wants to express in certain form. So writing form is very safe and sound. Then I started writing Anuradha one. It was 7 years back when I wrote Anuradha one. A lot of critics came. Then I learned a lot of things. That's how I started my writing journey. If I would like to give credit for my writing journey, it would go to Khalid Hussain. When I went through the book, then it changed my perception. I learned how Afghani people are going through certain agonies and how we should just express our feelings through a book. That was the source of inspiration for me. Thank you.
And since we're continuing the discussion, I have a let's continue the discussion. Since you have all have been writing for a long time, over a decade, different books. So, what was the situation when you wrote your book the first time, let's say a decade ago, and what has been the transformation in Asian English literature now? Vani?
So when I started writing, I wasn't living in India per se. So I was living in London at the time. And what happened was I could see that the acceptance for what we call English, Indian writing in English wasn't as much, at least a couple of years ago. And there were not many publishers also who were ready to publish authors. Today, I think a lot of my friends are writing, and I think more and more you have readers also, wanting to read books that have been written by Indian authors or by Asian authors. If we talk about it like we look at the whole thing in a bigger perspective. So I think there is much more acceptance, and yeah, we now don't talk about the English language as coming from some other country or whatever. We now own it. We have it's our language. We've made it our own. It's almost like pizza may have been introduced to us by some country, but if you come to Punjab, you can actually have chicken tikka pizza. So if you probably ask the younger kids, they would be like, "Oh, we introduced pizza to the world." So it's almost like that. Now we own English, and we have all our little things, chutneyfication also going into the books, and we make it English and Tamil plus English and Bengali plus English. So we have our own versions, and it's like it's probably a vocabulary of its own, and it's growing from there. It's evolving. Maybe 10 years from now it will be like something else. Who knows? Maybe you will have a lot of today people are even having those WhatsApp words like awesome, was up, and all in their books. So language is ever evolving, and I'm happy to see the development so far. We practically own it now.
Shah, what about you? What about your experience?
Well, in terms of writing books, my experience before in 2011, so that was 11 years ago, was there were not a lot of online courses on book writing. So, for example, if you want to write a book, you write from scratch, you do trial and error, and that's actually what I did because at that time there were no courses or seminars on how to write a book, at least in my country. And then, since I was a math person, I like formulas. I developed a formula for writing a book, wherein the only skill you need for you to be able to write a book is the skill to write a sentence. And then once you can write a sentence, just follow my formula and you'll be able to write a book, because sentences make up a paragraph, paragraphs make up a chapter, and chapters make up a book, right? So it's just a matter of how do you put these sentences together. And so now that's one of the things I do. I teach people how to write books, even if they're not writers. Before, around 2011, if you say author, you would refer to people in their 50s, in their 40s, 60s, even 70s, but you can hardly see authors in their teens or in their 20s or 30s. That was what I observed before. But now we have authors who are 11 years old, who are 15 years old, and authors who are in their 80s. So I love it because, for example, in what we do at the 90-day book writing challenge, um, I really believe that everyone can write a book. If you can write a sentence, then you can write a book. So it's like what I see now is that there are a lot of authors who are writing their books who believe that they have what it takes to write a book, and they've done it. They've written their books. So that's what I see now. More and more people are writing books, at least in the circle where I'm where I'm operating. Um, and they also believe that books is a great way to leave a legacy.
What about you, Ganesh? What transformation have you seen in the past decade as far as
Yeah,
Asian English
I,
literature is concerned?
yeah. I belong from Nepal, where 123 languages are available. Population is just 30 million. So you can imagine, we, particularly in our region, we use four languages parallelly. Mother language, okay, Marwari, then Hindi, Bhojpuri is our regional language, then Nepali, our national language. In our educational system all over the country, students are very much fond of English language. They even don't know about their national language. So when I wrote first book, I understood that might be it's good, reports are very fine, but until unless the youth wouldn't read it, I can't get the maximum yield of this book. So I just tried to translate it in English language. But speaking in English language is very common. But if it comes to literature, then it's very tough task for me. Then I remember one lyric of Jigar मुरादाबादी, ये इश्क नहीं आसान, इस बस इतना जान लीजिए, आग भरा दरिया है, डूब कर पार जाना होगा. I will translate for Sa. The love isn't easy. The love isn't easy. Understand in nutshell. It's the river of fire and need to go drowning. Same thing happened with me. I tried my best to find a good translator who know how to write literature. I tried. I got a lot of translator and they translated too. But the flow was going in different direction. The crux, you can say, the nectar of my writing was absent there. It took almost 3 or 4 years to get proper translator. Ultimately, I got it. Then I understood that India is ocean. Until unless I get entrance in Indian Ocean, I wouldn't get proper reader. So I tried in my laptop to find some publisher or literary agent. But where is the will, there is the destination, we say, na? Then I tried, and the bookbaker group came in contact, and I'm much fortunate. They just accepted my offer, and now I am in India. My first book got published in India, a lot of comments, critics, suggestions, and admire arrived to me, and it encouraged me to write down second novel in English literature. It's in process. If I'm right, within 1 year it would come in market. That's Samadhan. First it was published in Nepalese language, then Hindi. Right now it's in process in English. That's the journey. And I believe that the global market is waiting for our literature in English only, because there are more than 1,000 languages all over the world, particularly in Asia, we can say. So English might be a common language. Everybody would understand what I mean to say through our literature. That I believe. Thank you.
I would like to add a point here, Aditya. The thing
Yeah.
is, a couple of years ago, we didn't have and I think Shah would agree with me, and so Ganesh said it in as many words. I think a couple of years ago, we did not have the ecosystem. There were not many publishers, there were not many readers, there were not many retailers who were ready to stock the books. The whole ecosystem was not as developed as it is today. It's slowly evolved. It's also taken a lot of time to come to this stage, I think. Yeah.
True.
Right, so let's
True.
continue on that. Vani said that we own the language now, and a younger generation will think that English is from this part of the world, but uh, still it's not our native language. It's not there, right? It's not a native language. It's a product of certain events that happened years ago. So my question is, do you as authors still face challenges while writing in English, saying that saying that other language, for example, Ganesh's strong point is Nepali. He wrote in Nepali, then he translated into Hindi and English. For Shah also, she will write in a native language and then get it translated. Even for Vani, maybe it's a bit of both. So do you think it's still let's not say a struggle, but a challenge to write in the non-native language, even if we have some kind of ownership over it? Let's begin with Shah.
Okay, to be honest, I write faster in English than in my native language. The reason for that is because when we, as early as elementary, we were taught English. We were taught English. So if you go to the Philippines, you can practically talk to anyone in English, and they can understand you, and you can understand them as well. Now the challenge is when sometimes there are words in my native language, Filipino, that has no direct translation to the English language. For example, we have this famous word called kilig. Kilig, it refers to that fuzzy feeling you have when you have a crush on someone or you're giddy with excitement towards someone. So our word for that is kilig, but there is no English translation for that. So you need to, if I use it in my book, I need to explain what it means so that non-Filipino speakers can understand. I think I think that's the only challenge I see now. As regards other writers, um, sometimes also, or sometimes we express better. There are certain stories or certain local jokes that we can explain better in the native language. I mean, the
True.
effect is different when it is being said using the native language versus using the English language. But other than that, I think we're pretty comfortable using the English language when it comes to writing. I've never written a book that is in my native language
All
yet.
right,
I've
that
never written a book yet in my native language. All the books, all the 15 books I've written were written in English. There are just
that's
a few words or maybe phrases that are in my native language, which I translated to the English language.
that's interesting. So this is a question for both Vani and Ganesh. You can answer one by one. So we know there's a we word use called we use English, which means a combination of Hindi, English. Ganesh must have also experienced that when we even when we talk to someone in this part of the world, we're not speaking in one language throughout. We are mixing it up. It's a mixology, and so, while writing, do you experience the same? Because I've read this book called Sacred Games, if you have heard of it, and there are some things the author wants to explain. Since he's explaining the details of, let's say, Bombay Mafia or the underground network, and he is thinking how he has to use certain, uh, let's say, unmentionable words. He has to, if let's say the in that book, the leader of the gang wants to, let's say, admonish his uh, people. So now he uses a certain word to give him admonish him. So if you have written such a book or if you have read such a book,
Use a
can you,
word.
I mean, you can understand which
I
word I
said that.
can't use it, but
Come on, you
but,
can say
uh,
it. We're
but
all adults.
have you experienced this in your own writing that your character wants to say something in Hindi and you have to translate it. So you think in Hindi, because then it gets better. Even the ones understanding in English will understand that better. So how do you go about this in the books that you've written? Let's start with Vani.
Okay, so one thing, Aditya, and Rahul is there. Rahul is saying, Sha Nacino made an excellent point. So basically, the question you asked gets me very excited, and it has a couple of things to it. And let me say, number one, there was a challenge that I faced when I started writing as to whether should I write in my native language. I speak Hindi. Whether should I write in Hindi or should I write in English? The thing is that, like Shah also mentioned, when we were very little, English was the main medium of education for us, and so writing in Hindi never even occurred to me. That was number one. I am even today. I'm more comfortable speaking in English than in Hindi, and also expressing myself in English. However, when I dream in my native language. I still dream in Hindi, the mother tongue. That's why it's called a mother tongue. uh, Now, when I started writing in English, what you were saying were very real challenges for me, because the kind of vocabulary we use in Hindi, like for example, a mother talking to a son, and the vocabulary we use, the grammar, the syntax we use, the register of the voice, the tone of the voice, you were talking to a friend and you were like, oh my god, did you hear what we were talking about? Like, okay, this is just a simple sentence, and this is a lot of grammar that we have in our Asian writing, but you will not see anything similar in probably English novels written by English writers. Theirs is a very different vocabulary, very different syntax, very different register. And so these differences are very apparent. When we write, we have to dramatize it because our maids, our gardeners, people that we talk to, our friends, colleagues, even spouses, we're not talking to them like, in refined English. Oh, please, could you go to the market and please buy me this as well? And, it would look very artificial. So, yes, I still struggle with it because I have to make it look very original, very normal, and yet it is in English, which is not a language which I speak in my normal, probably, with my friends and all. I speak in Hindi and I'm very comfortable in Hindi and English, and I'm writing in English. So, how do I make it authentic? How do I make it look normal so that it doesn't stand out on its own? Like, what is she writing about? It's a challenge. It's a challenge. And let me just tell you of a small incident. So when I started writing, the first couple of chapters that I wrote for my first novel, I uploaded it on a platform. That point of time, this is like 2011, there used to be some platform. And I got so many comments like, this is not the way you write, maybe you should try writing in your native language and all. And immediately, I was like I became very conscious from that stage. But then slowly to develop this confidence, no, you can do it. And I know what you're talking about. You've read Sacred Games. I've read a lot of Indian authors. I've read Sacred Games. You read Shantaram, and so for these, and of course these are not like works by Shantaram, at least is not by an Indian author. So the thing is that they must be feeling the same challenges, and so why not chutneyfy it? Why not make a curry flavor out of it? What maybe Salman Rushdie did, just mix everything together, blend everything together, and see how it goes. And people accept it. People like it. They're pretty okay with it. Yeah.
Yeah. So Ganesh, what about you in terms of
Yeah.
vocabulary and what Vani
No,
said?
it's very true. Actually, such kind of challenges come in each kind of language. It's not particularly about English only. If I'm writing a novel, then I have to take care of the background of the character incident. If I want to express my literacy or my education there as author, then I would be failure. If I'm talking about card puller, the conversation would be according to the card puller's background. Same thing happens in English also. But I am very much agreeing with Sa. She said everything you can't change, particularly about proverb. If you are using proverb in local language, if you want to translate it, you will miss its flavor, its nectar. And there are a lot of sayings in each and every region, different kind of sayings. If you want to translate as it is, then you will miss it. It's real taste. So we need to take care of the real taste also while translating it. Many times what I have done, I have given the meaning in bracket but kept the original language as it is. So, as Vani said, the real taste, real chutney, or different kind of flavor people would feel. Otherwise, it would be artificial. No, my second book, when I wrote, many readers just claimed that you expressed each and every character as highly qualified, highly educated. How it's possible? You didn't judge with your character. They were very much true. If you want to make our book very perfect, very qualified, and very sound, then we miss the real taste, real nectar. So we should be very much careful that it should be natural act according to the flow. How the character is acting, there should be naturality. Same thing we should try, particularly in English. Yeah, it's very challenging task because after all, it's not our language. After all, it's not our language, it's adopted language, we can say, by hook or by crook, because of the situation of English people. They ruled all over the world, and we learned English. It's fortunate, unfortunate, we can say. So English is common language all over the world. Whenever we translate our language in English, we become much more careful not to make a single mistake. That happens very much stressful in our writing. So whenever I just attempt to write anything in English, it makes me stressful. Okay, I should be much careful. People are judging us where they are doing mistake. Vani is very perfect. We should make it chutney. Forget what people think. Just be natural. How you are talking within your family and friends, write down in similar manner. Then students, college students, and colleagues will enjoy. Okay, it's our own language. It's our own reformation. It's not copied. So I agree. Despite this kind of things, it's a learning journey. So we have to learn a lot of things. Still, it's a challenging task, but I'm very much happy that we got such certain kind of experience. Thank you.
I would just add what Shah was mentioning. I loved it. You said, idioms and phrases are the toughest to translate because you want to keep that essence and you still want to convey the meaning. And some things, which we've heard our parents say or our grandparents say, they are best expressed in the natural tongue. And for me also, that's like so hard for me to translate, like something like paisa vasool, or we have this saying in Hindi, "Nach na jane angan tedha." So how will you translate it? And it won't come. The essence of this thing is lost when you translate it. So these are challenges and real struggles that we face.
Very true. Very true.
But still, for Shah, I'll explain what Nach na jane angreda means. You don't know the subject, yet you are trying to be an expert. In basic thing, it means that you're trying to show off even if you don't know. It means that you don't know the dance, yet you're complaining that the dance floor is crooked or you're feeling giddy. That's what it means in the best way to translate. This is what it
Oh,
means.
okay. Thank you for
You
translating for
you
me.
must be having a
Uh,
similar saying, na? That if you don't know the subject, yet you're trying to be an expert in it, or you're trying to say more than what you know. So that was, I mean, I was also about to say that. So since we're talking about such things, proverbs in our own language, I'm sure Shah also has some in her own language. She did explain. So does this Asia is a huge region. I mean, Philippines, Thailand, India, Nepal, Pakistan, they're all chalk and cheese. Somewhere they're similar, somewhere they are different. And yet we have somehow managed to have a common vocabulary in English. But still, is this a boon or a bane? I mean, if since we can connect in English, but still there will be some things which what Vani writes in her novel trying to explain a situation Shah may not understand completely, even if you write in English. Is it a boon or a bane? I mean, how do you explain to this part of the world, even if we have English as a common language? So, who would like to start?
Sha.
Shah.
Okay. Well, I don't think it's either a boon or a bane. So the question was, does the lack of common language become a boon or a bane? I don't consider it either a boon or a bane. It really depends on how you see it. One particular example I can think of right now is Marie Kondo, right? She's a Japanese woman who popularized KonMari. And when you watch her Netflix videos, she speaks in Japanese. But how come she's able to share her advocacy to the world, even if even if she's not very fluent when it comes to speaking in English? So I think if your message is powerful enough, no language can hinder you from cutting through the noise and getting your message across. So that's how I would see it. And for example, if I'm a local in an Asian country, and let's say for example I don't know much about the English language, but I still want to communicate to the rest of the world using that language, which is English, then the challenge for me is I can grow as a person, I can grow as an author, because the challenge for me is how do I get my message across despite this particular hurdle on my end. So I'm a gratitude speaker. I see everything through the lens of gratitude. That's why. That's why I see obstacles and challenges as opportunities to grow, opportunities to become better. So that's my answer to that. I don't consider it either a boon or a bane. It can actually work to your advantage depending on how you see it.
All right. So, let's continue with Vani on that same thought.
I would say having English as a common language is good because I read a lot of translated works. Like I've read, for instance, I'm just giving an example. I've read Tale of Genji, which is very popular. I read a lot of Chinese novels. I'm very fond of Chinese novels. And I've read works in other, so for that matter, when we were children, we could read Arabian Nights only because somebody translated it for us. Otherwise, I'm not going to sit for 2 years and like try and learn Arabic for it or whatever language these novels are written in. So I think having a common language is a big advantage. But what you're talking about is, I think it's also your ability as a writer to convey what you want to convey to the reader in the best possible way. For example, if I have a custom which is specific to me in North India, a festival that I'm celebrating, and if I'm not elaborating it for my reader, then no matter if even I'm writing it for a Punjabi reader or a Gujarati reader, he's not going to get it. So you have to have that empathy for the reader, explain whatever you are writing in as much detail as you can. And I think people are pretty intelligent, they understand, they get a gist of things. The thing about Asians, all of us Asians, is that at least the minimum that we start with is we are very community oriented. We are spiritually very on a very high level, and we believe in God. We believe in caring for our adults and our elders and all. So those things are common, I think, culturally. Whether you take it people from Philippines or Thailand or China or Korea or even Nepal, Sri Lanka and all. So the themes that we write about are going to be around these, so, and having a common language just makes it easier, because for me it just makes it easier for me to understand that, okay, if in India we have 7 feras for a wedding, the 7 circles around fire for a wedding, in China maybe it is just 3. You bow to the heaven, you bow to the ancestors, and you bow to the earth, if I'm not wrong. So that's what I've read about, but it could be different. But I'm just saying. So I think it's great. It's a great advantage. And tomorrow, Who knows, I might buy Shah's book and I might read it, because it's in English and just makes it easier for me to understand it. Or I'll buy Ganesh's book. I don't need to learn Nepalese for it. Yeah.
Your point on this?
Yeah, actually, everybody has a certain kind of affection and love for their mother tongue. Likewise, in regional language and national language, we we can't blame that as a bane. Na? That's a kind of pride and the identity of their ethnicity or their nationality. That's true. So, in their sense, it's very reasonable. We can't say it bad. But as Saha said and Vani said, or at least we should connect the global market in single language. If I want to say something, I have to translate the saying in the language of reader only. Otherwise, I can't spread my saying in global market. That's also true. So if there is no common language at all, that's a kind of speed breaker in terms of our that literature market, particularly in Asian English literature markets. So in both ways, we can say that of course there are certain kind of speed breakers. We are stick to our regional or national language only if we are getting stick. But if you are a little bit open and heartily welcoming other languages also like Bani told, and if we accept English as a common language or other than English, when I went through other languages, I very much admired the Meridian language. Mandarin language is the only one language who is having more than 1,299 million people, and English is fifth. English is third language so far, I think. Yeah, Spanish is second, and Hindi and Urdu is fifth. So that's the very surprising thing. But English is not connected with ethnicity or any religion or any nation. It's commonly accepted everywhere. So if we are not just spreading English language as a common language, that would be a speed breaker. In both ways, we can say coin has two sides. One side, we should honor our regional or mother tongue or national language. Another side, we should accept English as international language. Otherwise, our development in sector of communication, connection, or globalization or literature would be stopped in some places. I agree, partially agree. Thank you.
Yeah.
That's
I
a
just
very
want to add,
interesting. Okay. Yeah.
Aditya, I just want to add to what I said a while ago. I think if I would rephrase the question, is English or is a common language important when it comes to literature? My answer would be yes, a big yes, um, because if we have a common language, then it's easier for us to understand each other. Communication would be easier. There is less chances for misinterpretation.
Yes, and I liked what Ganesh said, the word speed breakers. That's something very nice. So if maybe I was to speak to Shah in my language, it would make the whole thing so difficult. So good that at least, you have this common language. Yeah, agreed.
Right. I also like what Ganesh said that when you write a book, you think about the audience. What would be the language that the audience would understand, right?
Hmm.
So for
That's
example, if I write for young professionals, although I will still use English as a language, my style of writing would be different versus if I write for grade 5 students or elementary students. The examples, the language game I will use would be different.
I would like to say one thing. When I wrote second book, uh, a daughter of my friend who is doctor started reading my book but couldn't read. And what she said, I couldn't understood the word used in your books. There's a pure Nepalese word, and her mother tongue was Nepalese. Why you couldn't understand? I was quite stunned, surprised. She said, the words you use is not very common in our conversation. It's kind of literature. I have to take a dictionary. Otherwise, I can't understand. The education system in all our country, particularly young generation, they prefer to read and write in English only. That's also a challenging task. If you are writing in your own language, the young generation wouldn't getting entertained with, because they are getting very much stress understanding each and every words what you are using in literature. Same thing I faced. If young generation are not going to read your book in your language, after all, you have to change your book in their language. No choice at all.
Yes, yes.
That's
So,
all.
so the final question for today's session, since we began with Shah and Vani talking about young authors coming up, 11, 12-year-old writing. So, in terms of vocabulary and storytelling and everything, what is the one message you would like to give them, the young authors who are developing their style and who are trying to understand the vocabulary, even if they know it's in English, yet they converse in some other language at home. So they're trying to have this, as we talk about technification in whatever world. So, what message would you give them, young authors? Let's start with Shah.
Okay, wow. Message for the young authors is okay, I believe you have what it takes to write a book. I believe you have what it takes to become an author. So I think it's really for anyone to write a book, one of the most important ingredients is belief in oneself. Because I see that there are a lot of talented writers who also want to write a book, but for some reason they haven't written books. And one reason is because they lack belief that they can actually do it. So now I'm telling you from the perspective of someone who was not a writer before and who is not who doesn't use English as my first language, that it is possible to write a book. And the only skill you need, like what I shared a while ago, is the skill to write a sentence. If you can write a sentence, then you can write a book. So that's first, belief in yourself. The second is to focus on the message that you would like to share. And what would be the best way for you to share that message through your book? And the third thing, which is actually what Ganesh also shared a while ago, is think about your audience. What is the language that your audience would understand? Because even if you use the English language, there are different forms of English, right? There are English words that are very easy to understand. There are highfalutin English words. So think of the words that your target market could easily understand. If you need to use, so refrain from using slang or jargon words that your target market cannot understand. So you need to speak their language. When I was in college, we had this term called language game. So you use the language game that your audience can easily understand. And the last thing I'd like to share is to keep writing, and don't forget to publish and launch your first book, no matter how what would be the term. See, so this is the challenge, right? I have a term in Tagalog, but I'm translating it in English. How In Tagalog it's called how boplaks it is. It means even if it's not as good as you think it is. So don't forget to publish. So do your best, and when you publish it, if it fails, it's okay because you learn. So don't be afraid to launch and make mistakes.
Vani, your thoughts, your message.
Yes, thank you for asking that question, Aditya. I truly believe that the young writers that we have today are super talented. However, there are some things that I see that are missing in them, wherein I think they can make those improvements. Number one, I think it's a fast food sort of a culture that we see. So people want to finish their books as fast as possible, and then they want to sell those books as fast as possible and make as much money as fast as possible. I think we need to just go back, 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 back. Number one thing is, if you have a story to tell, take as much time as you want, but like Shah also mentioned, do your best at telling that story the best way you can. Secondly, do not bring money into the picture like right from the start of the project, because that will sort of not let that creative energy flow. You will get stuck very soon. You will get conscious, who is going to read my book, how am I going to sell my book, and all those questions that you really don't need to deal with or start thinking about when you're starting a new project. Third thing is get money out of your head. First, first thing that you need to understand is that it's a lot of you need to discipline. You really need discipline for writing something. It's not easy. You have to sit in a room with your books or with your ideas for many hours to pen down a story which conveys the story or conveys a message like what Shah mentioned. And to do that, you can't. So youngsters lack attention. There's lack of attention, lack of concentration. You have to sit there and do it for hours and hours and hours. And sometimes it may take you some years to complete a book, but don't rush it. There's just give it all you have and think about money and fame and all the rest of the BS that comes, that is for later. So this is my message to the young writers over there, like what Shah said, have belief in yourself, be original, stay true to yourself, learn the whatever the craft, learn the craft well, hone your skills, get to it. Do not be in a hurry to be famous or to make a lot of money. Just do it well. That's it. Just keep at it and don't give up. No matter what happens, no matter rejections happen, don't give up. Yeah. Thank you.
And Ganesh, finally, your message.
Yeah. So far, I think being a cook, very good thing, but you need to cook the meal delicious and tasty and acceptable and worthy. Same thing happens in writing also. Until unless you start reading books of good writer, author, and start just reviewing in reasonable manner, you can't be a writer. So first attempt should be with started with writing. Then while you start writing, don't hesitate to crop your writing. Whenever you see, read again and again, and see whenever you see there is certain plots or certain paragraphs or sentences are irrelevant, unnecessary, repeated, just crop it. As soon as you crop it, read it again, and be editor also. Don't read your book writing just being a author, being a reader, being an author, yeah, or editor also. You should read it. And one more thing, what I have been doing, whenever you find something new or something special for your writing, don't see your watch. Whether you are half asleep or whether you are in bathroom, just write down it. Otherwise, you will miss the opportunity. And what Vani said, I agree with her. Don't make yourself failure. Don't be depressed. You will get at first attempt a lot of negative remarks, rejections, a lot of things which will discourage you. But keep your effort continue. Ultimately, you will get the marks what you were waiting for. That's my experience.
Well, they were
Yeah, I just
indeed.
want to add,
Yeah, yeah.
sorry, I just
All
want
right,
to add
sure.
one sentence in the end because I feel this is so important, and Vani and Ganesh were able to touch points on this as well. This is what I would always tell people who want to write books. So don't write for fame, for money, for fortune. These are positive consequences of writing books, right? So the reason for writing books, this is what I would always share. Write because you care and you have a message to share. So that's my
Very
one sentence
true.
that I
Very true.
love to give my students.
Well, with this, we come to the end of day one, session three of of PLF Asia. And let's thank our panelists, Sha Nacino, Ganesh Lath, and Vani for being here with us this afternoon and sharing their thoughts and their experience on this topic. And let's hope that our audience learned a lot. Before we go, do we have any questions from the audience before we wrap up this session?
I think there were a lot of comments, but
Yeah, there
I
were a
don't see a.
comment. Yeah, but do we have
Yeah,
any questions before we wrap it up? Let's wait for a
I think
few seconds.
we can
If
ask
all right,
questions to each other.
I think we covered all the questions.
Yeah, so we covered everything in pretty. I
Yeah.
can go on. I mean, I'm enjoying this session so much. I can go on for an hour.
Okay, so we have Teresita Cruz, an author can also, she was just uh, putting words to what Ganesh was trying to say. That an author can also edit his or her book. Yeah, that's important because we do have some, we have the Chicago book of style and the APA style. So, yes, that's important. At least that's what I know. Chicago book of style and the APA. That's what I know. So, all right. Thank you very much, Vani, Ganesh, and Shah for being with
Thank
us this
you.
afternoon. And it will be a pleasure if we can have another session soon. But for the listeners, we'll continue with the session. We'll have session 4 very soon. So stay tuned. But with this, we formally end session 3, and it's goodbye from
Yay.
this
Thank
session.
Thank you.
you.
Thank you. Good evening to all.
Thank you to all our listeners, watchers. Thank you,
Uh,
Vani, Aditya, and Ganesh.
Thank you.
thank
Bye
you.
bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Let's
Bye
remain
bye.
in touch.
Yes.